Hello students. Today I am going to summarize and explain you another poem from your first flight book called Tiger in the Zoo. Let me quickly give you the introduction of the poem written by Leslie Norris, who explains the agony and helplessness of a caged tiger that lives in a zoo. The poet here explains what his life could be if he had been a free animal. The poet has tried to explain about the condition of animals that are caged by human beings for their own fun. So, this was the introduction of the poem. Now, I would summarize you the whole poem in a nutshell. So, be careful and pay attention. The poem begins with a description of a tiger that is very beautiful and is walking in his little cage. He has beautiful stripes on his skin and has velvet like soft paws. Paws means his feet. The spelling is PAWS. Paws. But the tiger is not happy and is quite angry about being confined in the cage. Confined means, he was closed in the cage. The poet says that if the tiger was not confined in the zoo cage, he would have been hiding himself behind the long grass near some water body in order to catch its prey, that is the deer or any other prey. But basically it's a deer. Okay. Now, also he would have terrorized the residents means villagers, okay, around the forests, the residents of the villages around the forest area. But the reality is totally opposite to this. He was confined in a cage which was made up of a strong building material, and he was helpless there. He could not show his power to the visitors, therefore, never tried to terrorize them. The tiger is described as being powerless and agonized by the poet. He says that during night also he is alone, hearing the voice of the patrolling vehicles. I hope you understand what does that patrolling vehicles means? The police. Okay, so patrolling vehicles of vehicles and looking at the stars. The cage life has totally changed the tiger's personality. Obviously, he was caged. It's a real home. He is in the jungle and he is now confined in the cage. So, the cage life is totally, it's a changed life for the tiger's, personality. So, the poet is trying to say that the animal, which is famous for its fearlessness and freedom, is confined and sad due to the human beings who want to derive pleasure by looking at him in the zoo cage. So obviously any animal like that animal like a tiger will not at all be happy because it is confined in the cage. So now I will read out the poem to you and then its explanation. It would be good, students, if you sit with paper and pen. Now the poem begins this way. He stalks in his vivid stripes the few steps of his cage, on pads of velvet quiet, in his quiet rage. Please underline the words which I am telling you and write the meaning. It would be good for you for understanding. So stalks means follows, vivid, bright colored, pads, paws of tiger, PAWS, and rage, anger. Now, in this stanza, the poet says that the tiger is confined in the zoo, moves around in the cage under his bright colored skin, under his yellow skin. He further says that the tiger can take only a few steps because the cage is small and it is not easy to move in it. One cannot hear his footsteps because he has very soft feet, like velvet, because of which there is no sound of the tiger's footsteps. The tiger tries to control his anger by quietly walking in the limited area of his cage. Okay, so he is angry because he is not free. Now, the second stanza. He would be lurking in shadow, sliding through long grass near the water hole where plump deer pass. Lurking here means, please underline, lurking means to be hidden, as to wait for your prey, Prey. The poet says that if this tiger was free, he would have hid himself behind the long grass near the water bodies, okay, near the water hole it is written, so near the water bodies, so that he could easily catch a deer. It says where plump deer pass, it means where he could easily catch a deer in order to have it as its food. Now basically the poet wants to say that the actual life of a tiger is to live in jungle, okay, where he could catch his prey and eat it, but the tiger is in the cage and cannot do so. He is not free to do so. Okay. Now let's begin with the third stanza, which says, he should be snarling around houses at the jungle's edge, baring his white fangs, his claws, terrorizing the village. Please underline the word snarling, which means warning sounds made by animals. Bearing, uncovered, fangs, sharp tooth of animals. Now the poet says, as in the stanza it is stated that he should be snarling around the houses, means he would have been free, okay, the tiger would have been free, he would have snarled around, he would have been making the these warning sounds around the houses located at the outskirts of the forests. At the jungle's edge means outskirts of the forest. And then the last two lines, bearing his white fangs, his claws, it means he would terrorize people with his sharp tooth and claws. And this, what will happen with this? This would create a fear among the people living in the villages, or amongst the villagers, or the people who live on the outskirts of the village. And the fourth stanza goes this way: but he is locked in a concrete cell, his strength behind bars, stalking the length of his cage, ignoring visitors. Concrete means, it means building made of bricks, cement, sand and water. Okay. Now in this stanza it says, but he is locked in a concrete cell, means now the poet comes to the reality of the tiger, that is inside the cage. He says that the tiger is confined in a strong cell which is made of strong building material, means all these concrete things it is made of, and he is caged, he is locked, and his strength behind bars means further he says that the tiger is behind the bars, so his ferociousness is also behind the bars. So he just stalks in the cage. He never tries to terrorize the visitors because his power is restricted by the cage. Therefore, he never tries to terrorize the visitors as he cannot attack them. Okay? Now, the fifth stanza. He hears the last voice at night, the patrolling cars, and stares with his brilliant eyes at the brilliant stars. Patrolling means to vigil, vigil, to guard, anything, you can write any of the words. Now, in this stanza, the poet says, in the first line says, he hears the last voice at night, means the poet says that in the night time, during the night time, the tiger hears the sounds of the patrolling cars. As I have told you, these are the vehicles of police which are used to guard at night. So in the night, during the night time, the tiger hears the sound of these cars. Okay, and then he stares at the shining stars with his shining eyes. The poet wants to say here that the tiger is sad and he is confined in the cage, so he cannot do anything. Okay, therefore he stares at the stars in the night and tries to divert his thoughts towards them. Means he is very angry, annoyed, agitated, he is very upset, he is sad, he is in a gloomy mood, and he is not able to bring out his feelings. So he is sad in the cage and he is looking at the stars. So this was the explanation, introduction, summary